Hi, Melissa here. I wanted to share today about what I think have been the most important parts to my improving with ME/CFS, or myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome. And as I've said a million times before, and will continue even more saying, it is really hard to say particularly what helped ME/CFS, because I have my experience, and my experience is ME/CFS combined with hypermobility, and then, we're all unique and we all have a different context, and I think it matters what things are going on, what comorbid conditions we have, what perpetuating factors we have. But as I've been going through, I've been writing my new book, Finding My Own Pace, and as I go through it and really refine everything down and think through the conditions, the treatments, my journey, I've been able to really reflect. And so I want to share today the things that I think have absolutely made the biggest difference in managing the ME/CFS as well as possible. So I think I'm going to go in order. I tend to, in order to keep my ideas straight, is go in order of kind of the things I learnt or started doing things, because that makes the most sense to me. So I guess first, though, it might help for a little bit of context. So I have had chronic pain symptoms from very young. So I had growing pains as a small child. I had what they called tendinitis when I was 14. At 17, I ended up with burning pain in my shoulders at the end of every day. And I went back and forth to doctors and specialists, and they just wrote me off. They had no idea. So by the time I got to university, I was on amitriptyline and I had painkillers, and I didn't have as much energy as everyone else, but I was managing, but I slept poorly. That's why I was on the amitriptyline. So the sleep and the pain started early. So anyone's guess as to what happened there. But in the last year of university, I got a really bad bug. It was like a flu. It made me extremely fatigued, and I could not get over it. I ended up having to go to the doctor after 2 weeks, because what poor uni student just runs to the doctor straight away. And I had an infection. They put me on antibiotics, and I got better, but the fatigue never went away. And so I couldn't carry on and do my master's, which I had wanted to, or any other further study. So I went to do full-time work, and I don't even know. I look back and don't know how I managed until 25. So for a good 4 years, I pushed myself hard. So by the time I recognized something was wrong and I needed help, I moved back in with my parents, and we moved to a warmer city, and I was able to reduce my work hours, and that's what I call the beginning of my healing journey. But the problem at that point was that I was extremely burnt out, on top of having ME/CFS and what we now know was hypermobility spectrum disorder, suspected hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That's a question mark. So I had a lot of things going on. But that point is where things started to change, because I never knew how sick I was, and doctors really never got it either. I'm still very mad at how ignored I was. I was a young woman. I was healthy. I did all the right things, right? I was exercising as best I could. I was eating healthy. I was doing everything I could. And they were just like, oh, well, dunno. Which just boggles my mind. But anyway, the first thing you might have noticed when I said I was able to reduce my work hours is I started pacing. And I didn't know it was called pacing then, but there you go. Pacing has been a vital treatment for me, and it made a big difference. Pacing is just, you have to use the energy you have well. It's all about efficiency, right? You just are not efficient if you're boom busting all the time. So I started trying to pace, and pacing, as I've refined it over the years, has become a cornerstone tool. So even now I pace, and it is more natural. I don't have to really think about it or have a plan, but I take my rest breaks. I have a full stop rest break. I do the yoga nidra. I know when I'm going to bed. I know how many hours I'm working, and I know how long I can do some activity before I need to sit down. So pacing is just by far important. the next thing was low-dose naltrexone. So I started low-dose naltrexone. Now, who's to say what happened, what would have happened, like if I'd changed the order of things, but here's the order it happened in. I started low-dose naltrexone, and that really started to make a difference. I started to sleep a little better, and I started to have a little less pain and a little less fatigue and a little less brain fog. And I feel like that's like the foundation upon the improvement is based, that plus the pacing. The next important thing was I learned about yoga nidra guided meditation, and for someone who was so fatigued and living with ME/CFS, it was brutal how bad I was at sleeping. So learning to sleep and getting quetiapine made all of the difference for me, and that I think has progressively made a difference. So I think what we're coming to now is the point where a few things clustered together and they have slowly formed a flow-on effect of me improving. So I started sleeping with quetiapine. Then we realized that I had endometriosis, and I got sicker and sicker. My periods restarted after my fourth baby, and they were brutal, even more than they had been before, which was bad, and I was sick. And I ended up like with nutritional deficiencies, particularly iron. I was anemic for a long time. So I eventually, and there's a video about it, so you can learn about my endometriosis story if that's interesting to you. But I had the surgery, and while the first 12 months after the surgery were pretty bad, the orthostatic intolerance turned it was borderline POTS. It still really is borderline, but anyway, the POTS kind of symptoms were quite bad after surgery. I was fatigued after surgery. It took a long time to heal, and I started seeing a chiropractor who helped me with the pain and the hypermobility. So where this fits is that it's like the perpetuating factors started to get dealt with, right? The hypermobility and the endometriosis were compounding my system. They were making it even harder for my body to make or keep energy. They just made the ME/CFS worse, no doubt. So we started to work on those perpetuating factors. And so that's where we get to now. So over the last 2 years, we're seeing the results of getting rid of the endometriosis that my body was fighting, supporting my body with the chronic pain that I had. So the chronic pain is reduced dramatically. And I'm supporting my body so that I'm not having so many, for example, danger signs going to my nervous system. There's not so many, okay, you're hyperextending again, danger, something is happening in your body. So all of these things have been quietened down, and I'm sleeping. So all of these things are culminating together to where I am now. So it's been a slow progression. And now where I am now, while it's miles away from where I was, I'm not normal by any stretch of the word. I was reflecting how I can do about 20 hours of work a week between my business and my part-time job, but it's spread out, and I don't do it all in a row. So for example, I couldn't drop the kids off and go sit at the office for 5 hours and then come home again. I have to have a rest in the middle. So we're not normal, but we're so damn grateful every day. So let's summarize really quickly. So the things were pacing, low-dose naltrexone, getting sleep, and I mean sleep as in hardcore sleep hygiene, and quetiapine, hitting the sleep to the point where I got quality sleep. And then dealing with those perpetuating factors. Those are just so vital. And once those things were taken care of, then it's the little things that can come and make a difference. So those little things like electrolytes, getting natural sunlight, gentle movement, that kind of thing. And then the yoga nidra is actually getting efficient rest. So having a proper rest break, and having a way to rest when you are having a flare-up and you're just beyond this world exhausted and you cannot function at all of that kind of thing. So the yoga nidra kind of functions across all of the levels. So it's helped soothe my nervous system, it's helped me with rest and my pacing, and it's just brought down those responses in my nervous system and helped me to be more calm. So I think those are the things that have really made the biggest difference. I think people can talk all they like about this supplement or that supplement or this thing or that thing, but I just don't think it's one thing. I don't think it's that simple. I think low-dose naltrexone has done more than I could even probably imagine, but I do think, you have to sleep, right? Nothing is going to get better if you don't sleep. So yes, sleep. But also those perpetuating factors are really important, because I am starting to see that the body is miraculous. It is weirdly amazing. Like, I made babies from nothing, and then like full-grown humans are now here. So the body is amazing, but we have to take away the things that are stopping it doing what it needs to do. And so before you even think about kind of treating ME/CFS, I think you have to look at those perpetuating factors, and definitely stabilizing the immune system. So I think that's what LDN did for me. And then I think also getting sleep started to do that as well, because sleep is really helpful for many functions in your body. But anyway, I could talk for many years about it. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to grab a copy of my book, you can do so. I'll put a link below. You can get it almost anywhere that you purchase books, and you can also ask your library to get it. But I hope you found this helpful, and I will talk to you again soon.